This week I've got Ocean's 8, and for better or worse, I do not remember almost anything of Ocean's 11, 12, or 13, but the good news is you don't really need to go into Ocean's 8. So Sandra Bullock plays Debbie Ocean, who is the sister of Danny Ocean, who is George Clooney's character in the original movies. And, you know, we start out with her in jail, and she's about to get released, and I guess she has come up with this brilliant plan while she's in jail to rob the Met Ball. And the Met Ball is on the first Monday of May in every year, and it's this big gala that they throw at the Met in New York, and, you know, all the celebrities come out. There's a lot of glitz and glamour, there's themes, there's high fashion. It's a to-do. And so Sandra Bullock puts together a crew, including Cate Blanchett, who I loved in this. Cate Blanchett should be in every movie, is probably one of my stances. Helena Bonham Carter's in it, Mindy Kaling, Rihanna, Awkwafina, Sarah Paulson. It's really enjoyable. I really appreciate a movie that has like an ensemble cast like that, and it didn't feel like everyone felt on a similar level, like they all should have been in the same movie. And so I really appreciated that. Like, you don't get to see female-led movies like this. And so they need a patsy or someone to wear. It's a jewel heist, and so they need someone to wear these jewels to the Met Ball, and so they somehow figure out how to manipulate this character called Daphne Kluger into it, and she's played by Anne Hathaway. And I swear to God, I'm pretty sure it's just Anne Hathaway playing Anne Hathaway, but cranked up a little bit and or revealing her true self. I'm not sure. Never met her. Don't know. But it just seemed, it gets a little meta with the Met Ball stuff, just because it's like, oh, okay, well, here's a bunch of cameos from designers and celebrities. And it's like, oh, do you need to be here? Probably not. But it's fun to see that they got to include all these, you know, basically female stars for the most part that don't necessarily get parts in other heist movies. It's a bizarre kind of amalgamation. But again, I had fun. I don't think it's the most brilliant film I've ever seen. It's not going to be the most brilliant film I see this year, but I always appreciate a good, enjoyable film. You know, it's not too girl power rah-rah. I think some people might be concerned about going into it, but there's definitely a sense of female camaraderie, which I appreciated. There is a bit of a romantic or ex-romantic plot line involving revenge with an ex-boyfriend, and overall, again, I think it's well put together. You know, there's some twists that are kind of easy to see coming for the most part, but it's still fun to watch. Like, I had fun watching it. I laughed at certain parts. The end got a little, like, we think we're smarter than you, and I was like, no, if you've seen enough of these movies, like, this is pretty formulaic. You're going to be able to predict some of these things, but it's still enjoyable to watch. So I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 5. I've also got Hotel Artemis, which I was so looking forward to, and honestly, I don't think it disappointed. It's this kind of ensemble film. Again, more criminals. So the idea is that Jodie Foster plays a character called the Nurse, and she has basically opened up this, it takes place in like 2028, and there's water riots, and I was like, this could take place in 2018 probably. So it takes place in the city of Los Angeles, and water has basically been privatized, and suddenly this company cuts off water, and there are riots. And so she runs this, it's called Hotel Artemis, but basically it's a hospital for criminals, and you have to have a membership, and, you know, you have to basically be a trusted criminal in order to be treated there. And so during this riot, you know, things are going awry, and so a bunch of criminals find their way in. So I like that all the rooms are named, and so nobody has a character name. They all just are called by their room name. So Sterling K. Brown of This Is Us and Brian Tyree Henry of Atlanta come in, and they play brothers who have robbed a bank in the beginning, and they are Brian Tyree Henry is shot. They're both shot, but he's more injured. So they come in, and Jodie Foster's nurse comes to treat them. Also, my favorite, Dave Bautista, plays Everest, who's the orderly and the kind of peacekeeper and, you know, general assistant to the nurse. And he's great. I love Dave Bautista so much. Like, I want to see him in so many more things. I love him as Drax. I think he's so funny. I can't wait to see Stuber with him and Kumail Nanjiani. I think he is such an underrated comedic character, because I think he has this sense, you know, there's obviously the physical comedy in that he's this huge bulking guy, but I think he has a good sense of comedic timing. Anyway, so Everest and the nurse treat Sterling K. Brown's character, Brian Tyree Henry's character. Charlie Day is this arms dealer who's already there, and he's like a total asshole in it. And it's kind of, you know, not what we see of Charlie Day on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He's playing a little against type, and he's a little scenery chewing sometimes. Like, I was like, you could either have dialed it up even more or dialed it back, but he kind of fell in between. So I was a little disappointed in that. And then Sofia Boutella from Star Trek Beyond and The Mummy plays an assassin called Nice, who is there, and we find out that she has a target incoming. It also stars Jeff Goldblum, who I also love in everything. There's a little like Marvel reunion happening here. My complaint about this film, not enough Jeff Goldblum. So he plays the Wolf King of Los Angeles, who's a kind of mob leader, and his son Zachary Quinto brings him in and is very demanding and is like, hey, see to my father and all this stuff. So I wasn't expecting the plot. It wasn't the most brilliant plot, much like Ocean's 8. It's not exactly revolutionary, but I still thought it was enjoyable. Stylistically, I thought it had a pretty distinctive visual style. Jodie Foster was great in this. It's nice to see her kind of play a little bit of comedy, a little bit of drama. It's a good role for her. I think the last thing I saw her in that I really appreciated was maybe like Elysium, and I thought that she was a little one note. So this gave her a range, and it was nice. It's violent, it's gory, it's bloody. What do you expect? It's about a hotel for criminals. It was creative. I enjoyed it. It's unexpected, and I think it's worth checking out. I'm also going to give it 3.5 out of 5. Finally, I've got Won't You Be My Neighbor, which is the Fred Rogers documentary, and oh my God, bring tissues. I was sobbing through this movie, and not because it's dark it's sad when, they talk about the legacy of him, but the impact he had, I think, is so unexpected. It's really nice to see him kind of getting this moment and people recognizing it. I think people recognized it to a degree when he was alive, but just reminding this next generation. And also, like, we are not currently living through, like, the greatest of times, and to see someone who is just wholesome and good and, like, a positive force in this universe is really refreshing to see. And I think it's, like, a beacon of hope. And there's a lot of stuff I learned about him that I didn't know. Like, I didn't know that he was an ordained minister, but I feel that Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood wasn't exactly a preachy show. Like, I feel like it definitely maybe preaches Christian values, but in the good Christian sense, in the like, hey, be nice to other people and be nice to your neighbors, but it's not preachy. I was aware that Fred Rogers basically saved public broadcasting. He testified before a Senate subcommittee, and in doing so saved funding for shows like his own, for shows like Sesame Street, which most people grew up watching, and I think were very formative and show the importance of educational television in addition to, or not in addition to, but show the importance of educational television, like things like that. We need access to shows like this. Unfortunately, I don't think it's the most brilliantly crafted documentary of all time. Like, there are parts that I wish they'd kind of deep dived more. However, the strength of the subject is certainly enough to carry this movie. My great fear was that we'd find a bunch of skeletons in his closet, and thankfully we did not, but I just feel like, left and right icons are dropping in terms of like, oh, well, that person's a terrible person. So it's nice to see that somebody in this world lives up to that, is a hero, does live up to the standard, practiced what he preached, is just a great person. I got very emotional during it just because, to hear these people talk about such another wonderful person is very moving. Fred Rogers himself, like, has a nice sense of humor. Like, you think of him as this serious, quiet guy, but it's nice to see him interact with his fellow coworkers, his crew, and it's just a great documentary. Even if you didn't love Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood growing up, like, I don't particularly remember watching it. I know my sister, I have a younger sister who did, but I was more of a Sesame Street person. But I think it's absolutely worth watching just because it's a nice, hopeful moment in cinema right now, and just a reminder that, like, good people are out there. So I'm going to give that one 4.5 out of 5.